Okay, we are back. We're gonna do a take two on this. Hello. Sorry I lost you the first time around. I think that this connection is going to be better. Anyway, it's Catherine Massell. Hi again. Elevated Consciousness Coach, New Earth Visionary. Hello. We're back. I hope you can find me. And I'm hoping that now I'm right next to my Wi-Fi router. That you're going to find me. All right, here I am. I'm back. I'm sitting right next to my Wi-Fi router now so that hopefully this will be a much better connection because I think that we were just in for more of the same. So, welcome back. We're going to just reset. Did I mention the energies are really powerful right now? Maybe there's some energy that doesn't want to give me this space to have this talk here today. So we're back. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you. Pardon the interruption. Amanda, Danielle. Yeah, I've tried that too, Danielle. It doesn't work. I wish. Someday I'll move somewhere where I have a good Wi-Fi connection. I thought maybe moving here to a bigger city would be better. When I lived in Tahoe, I would have very wonky connections as well. Anyway, we're back. So I'm going to start over. We're going to switch this back to the beginning. I'm now sitting in front of a beautiful jasmine wreath in my house. And so I'm just taking in the beautiful good vibes from the jasmine. Right? I know, old school tech. Sometimes the obsolete technology works though in a pinch. Or we do the good old fashioned unplug it and plug it back in. That's pretty much the extent of my tech savvy. Anyway. So, right, Tammy? We do what we can. We do what we can. We persevere and we move forward. That's what we're all about. So, those of you who are new to my world, thank you for being here, being part of this community, being part of this group of We Are New Earth, super high vibe community. Just to recap, I know I talked about this in our live video that was previously interrupted, but we have the We Are New Earth event summit coming up called the Boldly Free Life Summit. And this is going to be this Friday starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time, the 25th of February, and going for the 26th and 27th as well. 3-day free live virtual event session. It's going to be a good one, as it always is. We've done this 3 times before, and it's really all these presenters bringing their A game, the best of their gifts, skills, talents, abilities, wisdom, and it's all for you and it's all free. So come and support these amazing presenters. Take a look at the schedule in the featured posts portion of this group. See who's presenting, what time they're going live, what they're presenting on. Mark your calendars. Set the time on your phone or your watch and make sure that you can show up live if that's possible for you to do. So, as I mentioned, if you're new to this community, if you're new to me, I am Catherine Massell, and I am an elevated consciousness coach and New Earth visionary. I am many things, I wear many hats, but one thing that is foundational to what I do, to what I share, hi Lyndon, is practical ascension. It's gotta be tangible. It's gotta be practical. You have to be able to have this information land with you where you're at. Otherwise, this stuff, it's too esoteric, right? It's got no teeth. Can't land with you. What it is about ascension that is the most important thing to understand is that really practical ascension is really about an adaptability. It's an adaptability for us as humans. It's an evolutionary process, right? Ascension is not a destination. It's not an arrival point, because ascension is a continued, stepped process. You know, it's not a singular event. It's not a singular event where we arrive at some point. You know, this God in the sky reaches down and says, "You have ascended." It is a practical, participatory adaptability process, okay? And we're always meant to choose it from our human. And so as I was talking about, I thought maybe rather eloquently before I had to cut off the last call due to tech issues, or the first part of this call, was that we have to choose ascension, and we can only choose that from our human. So just as we have to choose ascension, we have to choose to evolve into higher consciousness. Who are we, where really are we choosing that from? Our human. Our spirit, our soul doesn't need to choose that, because that aspect of us is already evolved in a certain sense. It's our human that's choosing evolution. And we chose as a soul to experience our consciousness through a human vessel at this point. And thereby, this is the only filter of our experience. So what really rubs me the wrong way, and I think is a real deficit in understanding in the spiritual awakening community sometimes, and where I think there's a lot of false light also, is in trying to negate our human or pull back from our human as it is something that's lesser than, or something that, yes, it has a density to it. It can have a lower vibration to it, but that doesn't make it bad. It is our only vessel, our only filter of experience here in this lifetime. And everything about being human is about experience. Okay? Hi, Tammy. Hi, Pamela. Thanks for making it back, you guys. Thanks for persevering. So it is this feedback through our experience and this tracking of our experience that has some very key components of being human, the software of being human, that is allowing us to filter our experience, and that is our feelings and our emotions. Everything about being a human has to do with our feelings and our emotions, and they are two different things. They are two different things. So our feelings are really about the sensations we have through the filter of the sensory world, okay? The sensations that we have through our 5 senses, okay? And this is really important because we're feeling all the time. We're never not feeling, okay? But our emotions are different. They're much more complex because our emotions are literally what we're feeling about and thinking about the feelings that we're having. So I'll give you an example. I live in the Pacific Northwest now. I used to live in Tahoe, Lake Tahoe, California. So now I live in Washington State. Absolutely gorgeous here, totally different place. When I lived in Tahoe, we had about 350 days a year of sunshine. So I got very accustomed to, even in the wintertime, the snow would do its business. In the fall, if we were lucky enough to get rain, it would do its business. And when the storm was over, boom, blue skies, the sun comes out, sunshine all the time. Getting my vitamin D big time. Now I live in the Pacific Northwest, and it's quite cloudy. It's quite overcast most days, can be windy. Not any less beautiful, but just different, okay? Now, I feel the sun on my face, or I did feel the sun on my face, and I had the feeling of I'm warmed by the sun is warm, there's the sun, I have to put my sunglasses on. I had feelings about the weather, okay? I had to put on a jacket because maybe the sun would be out, but I was feeling cold, okay? When I'm in the Pacific Northwest and when I'm here, I'm feeling the wind, I'm feeling the cold, I'm seeing the clouds in the sky, and the feeling of maybe the damp cold sometimes is just a feeling. That's all it is. Now, my emotional state in these 2 places would dictate that when I was in Tahoe, how I was feeling, yes, was warmed by the sun, having it on my face. But it's a beautiful day would be an emotional state, meaning I'm having a judgment. I'm thinking and feeling about what I'm having a sensory feeling of, okay? It's a beautiful day. I could say here, living in the Pacific Northwest now, it's dreary. It's dreary. It's a dreary day. And that would be an emotional response to the feelings I'm having of what I'm looking at as, through my sensory experience of seeing an overcast sky, seeing clouds in the sky, the feeling of the dampness because it's rainy, okay? So I'm thinking and feeling about what I'm feeling. That's an emotional response. And we're doing this all the time. And you are doing this from your human. Because this is what's giving you the element of experience here. And this is what is marking your experiences here and also giving value to your experiences here. Okay? Are you with me so far? Again, practical ascension, breaking this stuff down. So you understand the difference. Do you understand the difference between feelings and emotions? Emotions are much more complex. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Because in our emotional response to something, literally the feedback we're having from a feeling and thinking level together, we're working with the emotional body and the mental body to place a judgment or value on our sensory experience. By extension of saying, it's a dreary day, what you're really saying is, I feel dreary. Because there is no experience that exists outside of you. So I know that sounds like I'm being clever or being flowery or inventive with my language. I'm not. Because everything here in this earth plane is about experience. And that means that you are having a relationship with everything. Everything here is relational. And what is it relating to? How you feel and what your emotional response is. So even when you think of your external relationships, a relationship that you're having with a person, a relationship you're having with a certain situation you find yourself to be in, you are only and ever having a relationship with it to the extent that you are having an inner experience of it. You're feeling something about it and you're having an emotional response to it. So in that definition, there is no experience that exists outside of you. We just make the extension or we make the extrapolation that something is existing outside of us. Nothing exists outside of us because how can it? Because everything is experience. And if everything is experience, by definition of experience, what that means is you are having a feeling about it and an emotional response to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an experience you're having. Okay? I know this might sound a little confusing, but I want you to understand how important emotions are as your human software to help you work the steps of ascension. So there is no evolution into spiritual awakening without your feeling of it. Because you can never have an experience here on this earth plane without a feeling of it. And by extension, an emotional response to it. Does this make sense so far? You guys following me? I really want to just start at break it down to brass tacks here, and then we'll build it up from here. So this is why it's so important in understanding that when I talk about ascension, particularly practical ascension in the sense that it's an adaptability. And what is our main mode for adapting to anything? Our emotional state. It informs everything. Because it informs what kind of value we are assigning to our experience. And you are never not doing that. Every single moment of every single day, with every breath you take, you are assigning value to your experience and you're doing it through your emotional state because that is the software we agreed to work with here when we decided to incarnate as human. Does this make sense? Thank you, Pamela. Okay, I'm getting yes, yep. Okay, great. There's a lot of you here. I'd love your feedback here. So when you think about the ascension process, and it is a stepped process of adaptability, we are adapting to different states of being, choosing a higher and better vibration all the time. That is directly linked to your emotional body, the emotional state. Okay? You have to choose it. You have to be active participants in the ascension process. It's not a singular event that's just bestowed upon you from on high one day because the universe says, she's done enough hard work, let's just let her ascend. It doesn't work that way. Ascension is a choice. It is 100% participatory. You choose it. And you don't choose it once. You're choosing it all the time. You're choosing it with every exchange you have with every other person in your life. You're choosing it with every kind of interaction you have with scenarios, situations, events that you think of as outside of you. You are choosing ascension in every single moment because of what you decide in your inner experience with yourself again. So we have to make choices every day that align our inner resonance with higher consciousness. And as we are evolving daily at a very accelerated rate into New Earth, because it's here. If you've been following me in my community, I've been talking about this for a long time. New Earth is here. The New Earth timeline, it's here. We're not waiting for it. We're not in this curious anticipation. We have to stop trapping ourselves in lower consciousness. And by trapping ourselves in lower consciousness, that means that we are choosing lower vibrational states of being, meaning we are and it's just conditioning. It's habituation. But we do it to ourselves. Again, because there is no experience outside of us. It's our inner experience that's deciding to trap ourselves in lower vibrational consciousness. And we're doing that by the emotional states that we decide to put ourselves in. So how we ascend into higher consciousness and how we can adeptly move through shadow, meaning anything we think that is aligned with lack or lesser than, and move into unconditional love, unconditional acceptance. What you're doing when you do that, when you consciously choose higher, and anybody can do this at any time, consciously choose higher. The easiest, quickest way to do that is to choose gratitude. Be in appreciation for something. I'm sitting in front of this gorgeous jasmine wreath, and I'm fully appreciating it here as I'm doing this talk, even as my internet continues to go out. It's causing me to be quite grumpy. I could choose that. I'm not choosing that. I'm choosing the next best available vibration. So the duality of our existence here is constantly presenting us with different choices that we can make. Are they conscious or are they unconscious? I made a really good talk the other day about how to make conscious choices. Okay. That means using the full faculty of you to say, I choose this because it's the next best available vibration. It aligns me with something that feels expansive instead of contracted. It's taking me in the direction of where I want to be going in life. Those are conscious choices. Okay. So when we become more adept at choosing higher, choosing the next best available vibration, like gratitude, which is something that's available to anybody. I don't care how shitty your day is going. You always have the ability to say, well, I could choose to be grumpy because my internet is going out. Or I could actually choose to take in the beautiful smell of this jasmine. I wish I had smell-o-vision because it's freaking incredible. I could choose to take in the smell of this jasmine, let it calm my nervous system, and allow me to keep my eyes on the prize here and keep delivering this information to you in the highest and best way I possibly can. Right? Gratitude is my go-to for immediate shifting of my energy, and it's available to all of us because every single one of us has something to be grateful for. I don't care how crappy your day is going. Do you have hot water in your shower? Start there. Do you have a nice, delicious cup of coffee in the morning with high-quality coffee grounds? Yes? Okay, great. Be grateful for that. I have, my favorite notebook here. My $1.19 Rite Aid notebook. That is like my Bible because I'm old school. I write everything down. I'm grateful for that because I can go through these notebooks and it's a treasure trove. It's a mine every time I go through them to find out more nuggets that I can expand on or talk about more. It's sunny today in the Pacific Northwest. I'm excited about that. I'm very, very happy about that, okay? But even if it was overcast today, the mountains are still beautiful when I can see the snowy tops of them. You know, it's still beautiful in this waterfall park that I live less than a mile from, that I can walk my dog into every day. I am choosing deliberately, consciously, the next best available thought or feeling or emotional response all the time. Does it take practice? Hell yes, because we're not conditioned to it. We are not habituated to it. We are more habituated to choosing in alignment with lack rather than in alignment with abundance. And I'm not making a value judgment on that, and that may sound like a very blanket general statement. It's the truth. Otherwise, my job would be done. There would be no need for me to do what I do in the world if that were the case. Okay? So here's what happens when you deliberately and consciously choose the next best available vibration, to be in the next best available feeling state, okay? It emits impulses that affect the vibratory field of the emotional body, okay? So this sets up an intercellular resonance. So what that does is it actually informs the DNA. It unlocks coding in the DNA for you to step into the next elevated station of ascension, because all of that coding is written in your DNA. The coolest thing about your DNA is that ascension is built in. Your highest codes of expression, meaning your, if you want to call it your Christed consciousness blueprint, your unity consciousness imprint, that is already an expression that's available in your DNA. But everything in the universe is about energy, frequency, and vibration. This is what unlocks codes. If you can match the vibration of that code in your DNA, you unlock it. Which means that's the secret to stepping up through the stages of the ascension process. Because remember, it's not a singular event. It's not at a singular destination or arrival point. These are steps or stages of consciousness. And they are all written into your DNA. Yours, mine, Christine's, Pamela's. Ascension is built in. So the agreement that we basically were on board with, agreed to when we came here and decided that we were going to, from a soul level, descend into a lower vibratory state, which is the density of 3D, but there's nothing wrong with 3D. And this is another deficit in the spiritual community I see, is talking about 3D as if it's something wrong. Again, just like your human body is the filter for your experience in this particular lifetime, 3D is your filter for experience in this particular lifetime. It's not bad. There's nothing wrong with 3D, okay? And the more we try to negate from it and pull away from that which we are, the more we end up fragmenting ourselves from the entirety of consciousness. So if you're assigning any kind of value to, well, I have to move towards 5D because I've got to get away from 3D, like I want to leave skid marks in this dimensional realm, I got to get out of here. The more you do that, the more you fragment yourself from consciousness, the more you are creating an inner resonance of separation, of othering. And we got plenty of that fucking happening on planet Earth at this time. Don't do it to yourself. There's nothing wrong with 3D. There's an incredible amount of duality here, but that is the way that this dimensional realm is constructed. Because this is the lesson of 3D, is duality. It's built in. Contrast, polarity, duality, it's all built into the third dimensional realm because this is a giant mystery school. So I want to talk about this. You know, we're... And for those of you who don't know what mystery schools are, the quick and dirty explanation is that those on a spiritual quest, a spiritual journey to awaken, historically, would enroll or be initiates into a mystery school. That meant that there was only a certain small, exclusive sect of society that would have access to information about enlightenment, spiritual awakening, moving towards some mastery level of spirituality, okay? The truth about mystery schools is that a lot of them fell out of integrity a long, long time ago, okay? But in their original inception and their original goal, ambition, was to take initiates through a stepped stages of awakening, of moving into mastery. Mastery meaning being able to embody a state of essentially neutrality. And neutrality in the sense that nothing outside of you has control over you, but you're not in control of it either. You have an ability to respond from the highest and best available aspect of you without being triggered by some sort of external reality, but you also have certain alchemical knowledge available to you where you can manipulate the different realms, usually through the elements, the sacred elements of earth, air, fire, and water. Okay? Give me that 3D chocolate any day, right? So, a mystery school is a place of different levels of initiation. So I'd like you to think about your 3D experience, instead of thinking it, going the easy route and thinking it of the 3D experience as something bad or something lesser than. Think of the 3D experience on Earth as one giant mystery school and place of learning. I call it the Great Earth Experiment of Spiritual Awakening. I wrote a book about it. It's called Notes on Ascension. If you want it, you can go to my catherinemissel.com homepage. But we are in a giant mystery school initiation. And the initiation really is moving towards mastery. What kind of mastery? Emotional mastery. Because as I mentioned, we keep choosing the highest and best available emotions that are, taking us up into a different stage of awareness, a different level of experiencing, placing a different kind of value on our experience that is higher and more evolved. That is your very own stepped process of initiation in the 3D mystery school that is planet Earth. Okay? So think about that. And the initiation is to keep unlocking more and more codes of the ascension process. And we can only ever do this through emotional resonance. Meaning, we have to create an inner experience, an inner resonance where we match these codes in our DNA to unlock the next level of our ascension awareness, our ascended consciousness. Does this make sense? So if you're constantly choosing to resonate at an emotional level where you are at odds with yourself, you are making choices against yourself. You're making choices that go against your values. You're making choices that go against your boundaries. You're making choices that go against what you love, what you prize. You're making choices that go against love. You're making choices against you feeling good. Then you are making choices against yourself. And you're choosing an emotional resonance that does not unlock codes in your DNA, that does not reach the intercellular resonance, in other words, of ascension. Does this make sense? Because I want to be able to proceed with this intact, okay? And so if your emotional state, your emotional resonance, where your emotions are. Remember, I talked about the difference between feelings and emotions. Feelings are just the physical sensations that are sensory feedback going to the nervous system, okay? But emotions are more complex because the emotions are how you feel and think about what you're feeling. And I use my example of the weather here, right? the weather here in the Pacific Northwest versus the weather in Tahoe. If I say it's dreary outside, what I'm really saying is I'm making a value judgment on the day. It's just cloudy. It's just overcast. The sun maybe isn't, it's invisible to me at the moment. That's all it is. But in an emotional response, I'm making a judgment about my experience, about my sensory feedback. That's an emotional response. That's your emotional resonance. So what you're really saying when you look outside and it's overcast and you say it's dreary, what you are saying really, I feel dreary. Do you get that? And because, as I mentioned, there is no experience that exists outside of you. There is only your inner experience of what you are placing value on. What kind of value you are assigning to your experience. Okay? So, we could be talking about the weather. We could be talking about a stranger that you meet. We could be talking about a particular life experience, maybe with your finances. We could be talking about an experience that you're having with your spouse. If you are making a statement that you are assigning, value to just a certain sensory feedback that you're having, you are having an emotional response to it. And everything about our experience and how we mark our experiences and ultimately define ourselves through this experience is how we are assigning value to the things we feel. Okay? This is very complex. And this is the exact mystery school initiation that we're here to unravel and dismantle is what are we feeling moment to moment, but what are we feeling and thinking about what we're feeling moment to moment? That's emotional mastery. That's the 3D Earth Mystery School experience and the ultimate and only initiation that we really need to pay attention to, because this is what unlocks those codes in our DNA. And so the New Earth resonance is one of unity consciousness. And we're not in anticipation of this timeline. New Earth is here. Unity consciousness is here. But we haven't learned how to ground it yet. And we keep thinking, well, if it's a planetary timeline, then it has to be unity consciousness for the collective. Yes, that's absolutely true. But how do we get to any kind of collective mass consciousness? It's always on an individual level first. So you as an individual, what kind of judgments are you placing on your experience? Day to day, moment to moment. And here's the thing. Whatever we judge is something that we don't accept. Now, acceptance, I think, is another misunderstood and misplaced idea. That we have to blindly give ourselves over to things that we consider to be unwholesome in this lifetime or experience. No, that is not acceptance. Not in the spiritual kind of cosmic play of that word. Acceptance simply is being able to be with what is, without judgment. You could look out at the world and say, well, I see this as just one giant divide and conquer timeline. Everybody's at each other's throats. Everybody's offended by everybody else all the time. Everybody wants to cancel everybody else. Everybody wants to rule the world in this way, and everybody wants to think about the world in that way. Okay? Huge divide and conquer timeline, no question. All right? But can you accept and be with the fact that someone else thinks differently than you without assigning any value or judgment to it? Most people can't. It is a knee-jerk response to be able to place a value or place a judgment on how someone else is acting, what they're doing, what their behavior is, what deed they're involved in, what they're saying, what their belief systems are, what their religious experience is. It's just so habituated in us to have that kind of knee-jerk response of judgment. And it's no coincidence that at this time on planet Earth, it is that very tactical approach that's keeping the human family at odds with each other all the time. Is using things to constantly trigger judgment, to constantly trigger an othering, to constantly perpetuate this illusion of separation. But here's the thing. This is a realm of duality. Just as much as you can choose to go along with that, choose to play the game of divide and conquer, you can equally choose that I am not going to be affected by that. I'm too smart to be swayed by that. I'm too wise. I'm too invested in this whole unity consciousness thing to buy into, to play into, or be a pawn in that game. I am not available. I opt out. I'll unhook from that hive mind. Thank you very much. That's also your choice. And you might be saying, but Catherine, no. No. It is a choice. Remember a couple minutes ago, I was saying we are constantly being invited to choose. And if you are aligning with that intercellular resonance that you have, meaning the coding that you want to unlock in your DNA that allows you to step through the ascension process and keep on that trajectory and path towards unity consciousness realized first within and then without, then you have to understand, even in the minutia of your everyday life, or what you think of as mundane or the minutia of your everyday life, a choice is still a choice at the end of the day. And every choice you make is doing one of two things. It is taking you in the direction you're desiring to become, that's in alignment with your values, your principles, what you love, what you prize, what you assign the most value to in the most wholesome way. You either are making choices that align with that, or you aren't. You are either in alignment with the higher New Earth timeline of this planet, or you aren't. It is that cut and dry. Because when we're talking about alignment, you're in or you're out. That's it. You're in or you're out. It's not like, well, today I have my big toe in the alignment pool. That's pretty good. Please don't kid yourself. You're in or you're out. Look back at the choices you made today. Could be what you decide to put in your body. Is it fuel? Is it good food? Is it nutritious? Is it feeding your body? Is it aligned with the wholesomeness that you want to feel? Because here's the thing, the better stewards we are of our physical body, we tend to also be better stewards of our emotional body, and we tend to be better stewards of a higher collective timeline, because we're, making sure that we are taken care of every single day, that our cup is full, that we feel wholesome. We end up being better stewards of the planet when we feel in a really good space, right? When our cup is full and spilleth over, then we have enough reserves to be able to take that beautiful energetic potential and roll it into other things, have it feed other things that we also care about and value. That's an interesting point, Pamela, because the only definition that would be, the other definitions can be, well, alignment with what? And I'm talking about specifically here, alignment towards your highest potential. And it is only when you are in your highest potential that you can hope to feed in a wholesome way the collective planetary timeline towards realizing unity consciousness. And so I have a secret sauce that I use for that every single time. Being in alignment with that means, am I choosing the highest and best good for me, the highest and best good for all, and with the least amount of resistance for all involved? So then it becomes crystal clear for me whether I'm choosing in alignment with that or without. So that's specifically what I'm talking about here, because we're talking about unity consciousness. So you're either in alignment with that or you're out, and there is no gray area there. But you can talk about being in alignment with different things. I'm talking about being in alignment with that. So thank you for clearing that up. So your feeling nature, meaning your ability to feel, is an aspect of your human. It's part of the software that we came here with. And we knew that when we incarnated as human, that everything here is about the emotional spectrum of experience. And everything about being human is about logging experience, cataloging experience, compartmentalizing experience, placing value on experience. That's what this playground of planet Earth is all about. And it's part of our soul's journey to experience this. And yes, in terms of our soul's journey, this is just a blip. That's why I say that, you know, when you're in those moments or those times of, pardon my French, those fuck my life moments where just everything is going wrong. I sliced my fingertip off the other day. I did. I sliced my fingertip off. You want to know how I know I sliced it off? Because I can't find it. So there's no stitching to be done. My husband's like, do you need to go to the hospital for stitches? I'm like, to stitch what? There's no fingertip there. And so I could have gone into, this is a fuck my life moment. Like, oh my God, what an idiot. What a jerk I am. Why wasn't I paying attention? I didn't do any of that. I could have. The old me would have done that and would have had no problem calling myself all kinds of names that if someone came up to me and said to me, I would have slapped him right across the face. But it's so funny how we talk to ourselves sometimes, right? And the old version of me would have said so many terrible things, labeling my experience, basically labeling me, right? By extrapolation, labeling the experience, but I'm labeling me when I say how stupid I am, why wasn't I paying attention, whatever. I didn't do that. I was like, and I'm all right. You don't, I'm going to be okay. Because even more truth and TMI here, it's not the first time I've sliced a fingertip off. Anyway, just an interesting little side note. But I didn't go into that because I know what happens to my nervous system when I go into that negative self-talk. I know what happens when I go into that fuck my life energy because I've been through it. I'm habituated to it. I've been conditioned to it. I've experienced it. I've downloaded those lessons a million times over of what it's like to be in those fuck my life moments and to languish there and to marinate there. I know exactly what it gets me. And so do you. So I make the choice in that moment. I decide to be present with what is, and I accept what is. And I say, okay, if I can accept what is, that means I don't have to judge it. That means I don't have to place a value on it. I don't. I can, but I don't have to. I can choose higher. I can choose better. I can choose the path of least resistance, meaning I'm not at odds with myself. If I was to give myself all kinds of terrible names for doing something so silly in the moment, I am choosing to be at odds with myself. I am choosing a lower emotional resonance. And here's the thing, folks. This was an extreme example using my missing fingertip. But in every day and every moment, we're presented with the same kinds of choices where you are either choosing with yourself or against yourself. Choosing with yourself means choosing something that makes you feel expansive. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel full of hope. It makes you feel full of possibility, full of potential. What is the next best available vibration? I'm on that track. Or you're choosing against yourself. This is what I should do, or this is what someone told me, and if I'm putting my control, or I'm allowing someone else to feel like is the boss of me, and I'm putting my attention towards, well, what would that person do? Or what have I even done before? Where I'm not trusting myself at this moment. Where do I not feel capable to proceed towards something higher and better? You are choosing at odds with yourself. And by extension, you're not choosing unity consciousness, because there you are in that moment, not choosing unity, harmony, coherence within. This is not the emotional resonance that allows you to align with New Earth. Because New Earth is unity consciousness. And that can only ever be experienced in the collective as a planetary timeline if it can first and foremost be experienced within. So how do you get there? How do you choose that? First of all, and the only way to start is to be more present. And I'm not going to say that there aren't a lot of things right now being sensationalized in the world that make us think about anything else but the present. What they're really doing, you might think you're thinking about the present, but what you're really doing in light of having an emotional response, an emotional relationship, an emotional connection with what's happening in the world's events right now, you may think you're being present with it. But actually, most of the time, if we're really honest and we're choosing to be present and choosing to be conscious in the now, what you're really thinking about is something in the past or something in the future. Either way, you're siphoning yourself off from the only control you ever have. You have no control over the past. That's an illusion. It's an hallucination, really. You have no control over the future, also an hallucination. Because the only thing you have control over is the now, because that's all that there is. The now is the only thing that exists. And it's the most expansive energy to allow yourself to move into and expand into. But we so often choose to put our energy on something that deliberately contracts us from it. And that is placing our attention on somewhere in the past, which is an illusion and hallucination, or choosing to put your focus and awareness on something in the future, which is totally unwritten, complete fabrication, complete illusion, and complete hallucination. Because only and ever what you're doing is feeling something about perhaps something you're imagining in the future. Maybe you're worrying about something and you're thinking of a potential outcome that's not very wholesome, not very good, and you're placing your awareness on that. You think you're placing your awareness on the future. You can never do that because you can only ever have feelings and an experience of something now. And you might think, okay, I'm lamenting the past. Remember the good old days when things were like this 4 years ago when I could do this or travel there or whatever. And you're putting your attention, you're siphoning off your energetic potential in the now towards something that can't be changed, and you're ruminating on that, you're languishing there, you're letting it take up valuable energetic real estate within you. You are not choosing anything except to siphon your energy off from all the creative potential that's available to you now. And the vantage point from which you're looking at your past is only and ever now. You're never having a feeling about your past other than now. Does this make sense? So you have to get present. And many of us aren't very practiced at that, right? And a lot of the things that are sensationalizing our experience here on planet Earth are either news stories, media stories, whatever, that are taking our attention, making us think about a future outcome that is not yet here, or making us lament something that was before. And part of waking up, part of ascending, is being able to realize that where there are certain tethers and cords trying to pull your attention away from anywhere except where it matters the most, which is now. Because there is nothing else other than now. Okay? So if you want to start pulling your emotional resonance into the now, one great way is to opt out of reading into or playing into the sensationalism of a lot of media. Okay? And that's true for Facebook land. I'm not talking about mainstream media only. Okay? And I'm fully aware of the irony of putting this on Facebook and YouTube. Okay. But I choose to use these as tools for growth, right? I've cleaned up my Facebook feed so much that I'm only seeing wholesome things that align with who I am now, what my mission is, my purpose is now, what I want to feel every day, what I'm choosing every day, and ultimately the track or trajectory that I want to continue to be on. So I'm choosing in alignment with that, when I cultivate anything that my eyes come across, whether it's on my phone and the news that comes across my phone, or my social media pages and my connections, my Facebook friends, etc. I've cleaned that up and cultivated and crafted that community so that it is wholesome to who I am. Because that's part of my commitment to making choices every day that align with who I am and who I be and who I'm continuing to become. I invite you to do the same. Okay? And it's not that I can't handle a contrary point of view. It's not that I can't handle conflict. But here's the thing, and maybe we don't realize it, we don't have to choose to interface with that. There are a lot of ways that we don't have to choose to interface with that. I mean, there are things that we can't control in our outer reality. There are, incidents, interfaces, altercations, interactions, etc., that we can perceive from our emotional resonance state as being negative. And we still, even in that moment, if we're present, we get to choose, well, I'm not going to, if I'm interfacing with something that I deem as threatening, worrisome, negative, or whatever, I don't have to engage at that level, right? No news ever, I'm allergic. But even then, that's your choice. Because that aligns with who you are and who you desire to become, does it not? Okay? So we always have this ability to choose. But understand that when you are choosing in alignment with yourself, choosing in alignment with your values, what you prize above all else, what you desire ultimately, what you desire to be, do, and have, the kind of relationships you're striving for with yourself and others and the world at large, are you making choices that are with that or against it? Because if you are making choices that are with that, you are choosing an emotional resonance that aligns with the new earth. Okay, so what you're also doing is informing all the fields and interconnecting bodies. So we have a physical body, we have an auric body, okay? We have an etheric body. The etheric body is the ka. I call it, it's the same as the pranic body, but the ka, you could think of it, the ka, as the etheric body. That's a better way to think of it. But it's the spiritual twin of the physical body. So when people have the ability to bilocate, okay, so you can have two expressions of your soul in two different places, which is very interesting, but it's possible. Okay, so when you can bilocate, what the ka is actually doing, the etheric body is having presence in two places at once. It's not like an unwholesome splitting of the soul. It's just bifurcating the focus of the soul into two places at once, if that makes sense. So you could think of the ka as the spiritual twin of the physical body. It has a body, it has a representation. You have your auric field around that, and then you have an emotional body, okay? So everything I'm talking about here has to do with the emotional resonance. I'm talking about the emotional body, okay? And then outside of that, we have the mental body, which is a really, really big field because it's not just our own individual mental matter, but it's the entire mental matter of 4D, which is a hive mind consciousness, and by extension, the magnetosphere of this planet, if we're talking about a physical sort of form of something. But think of the magnetosphere as the mental body of the planet. And there's a lot of emotional or a lot of mental matter in there that is from the collective level of the entire human family on planet Earth. The mental body is big. And this is where humans spend most of their time. Most of humans spend their time in that mental body space of thinking about how they're feeling. Except it's not always a very present and non-judgmental, because you can have a mental body resonance with your emotional body where you're not placing judgment on it. This is what I call the objective observer vantage point, where you can be thinking about what you're feeling, but you're not necessarily placing any judgment on it. Again, we're talking about emotional mastery here. We're talking about moving to a master level of resonance. We have to be able to get to this place. There is no ascension for planet Earth until we can get to this place where we can think and feel about how we feel and accept it. And whatever we don't accept, we judge. And what we continue to judge, we continue to separate or create fragmentation. We create separation within ourselves, fragmentation within ourselves, fragmentation from the entirety of consciousness itself, fragmentation, division, separation from others in the human family, or what we perceive as others in the human family. We're all one, right? And there are certain mechanisms, designs, structures, systems on this planet at this time to keep us doing that. When I was talking about ascension being 100% participatory, that means you have to stop participating in that divide and conquering dynamic, including where you divide and conquer within yourself first, because you can never experience divide and conquer as outside of you unless you're already doing it in your inner experience. And we do this all the time by denying our shadow. Those parts of us that we don't like very much, I'll deal with you tomorrow, our shadow. But they are never not a part of you. You're just trying to push away at them and think they're not a part of you. So it remains part of the mental body, because we think about these parts of us. We assign value or judgment to these parts of us that we wouldn't like to admit are parts of us. And this is why the mental matter, the magnetosphere, the mental body of ourselves and the mental body around this planet is so huge, it's so massive, it's so convoluted, it's so complex. And we could clear this up if we spent a little more time in the emotional body. That means dealing with our shadow. Unlocking those places within us that we feel like, there's themes or experiences, events in our life that if we were to think about them, we think that we reactivate them or we relive them. You don't have to. One of the things that is very valuable, I teach my members of In Alignment, is to review rather than relive. And a lot of us won't tackle our shadow because we think about our feelings of shadow, that we have to relive that pain, that trauma. You don't. You don't. Like everything else, it's a choice. You can be an objective observer, vantage point, and review. I like thinking of it as it's like being in drone footage of your life, going back to a certain experience or situation, being in this kind of drone footage where you're watching it all happen, but you're not directly involved in it. You're not the subjective observer. This is really the most beneficial and efficient way to accept our shadow, to acknowledge it, and then work with it as a part of self, as it was always meant to be, because your shadow is not distant from you. It's not outside of you. And the truth about your shadow is the more you go without accepting your shadow, acknowledging it, working with it, bringing it back into the light of your love, then that's the exact part of your life that's creating the emotional resonance of who you are, and it's dictating the track or the trajectory of your life. That's the part of you that's making the decisions. Because it's always from those fragmented parts of self, those parts that we cast away. Those are the parts that are screaming the loudest, asking for the most attention, throwing the biggest tantrums, creating a scene when you have a triggering moment or altercation in your life. Not because it hates you, not because it wishes you harm, because that's the time you're paying the most attention to your life, is in those moments. And so it's screaming at you for your attention. It's screaming at you for your compassionate witness energy. It's screaming and yelling and saying, I'm over here. Will you please take me back now? It's been so long. I want to come home. And here you are like, not today, Satan. I don't know you. I don't see you. I don't hear you. La, 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 la. You are far too painful for me to look at. I don't want to admit I was ever this person. I don't want to admit I ever had these feelings. I don't ever want to admit I was this much, lesser than, or this unworthy, this unwise. And that will continue to dictate our emotional resonance. So you have to bring these parts back home. So I'm going to take you through a little exercise. So this is everything that we're talking about here is what we go into in a much, much deeper level in the In Alignment and Thriving core program. Okay. And what I'm going to share with you here is an exercise that will actually go much deeper in the program because it's part of a new module that I'm offering this time around. So it has been started off as 5 modules for In Alignment, and then it became In Alignment and Thriving, and it was 9 modules, and now it's 11 modules in Alignment and Thriving, and we're going to start up on March 10th. This is the most transformative program I've ever taught. This work goes very, very deep. This is working with the essence of you and your emotional resonance of you, and what the emotional resonance you want to create that takes you forward on the path that aligns with the core truth of you. And what is the core truth of you? Everything that I've illuminated here in terms of what do you value? What do you prize? What are your desires? What are you available for? What are you not available for? Where do your boundaries? How did you establish them? What makes your boundaries have meaning for you? What do you prize? What do you love? What gives you joy? What do you speak as part of your truth in an unflinching manner? Because this is who I am. The rest of the world be damned. This is who I am. And if I can't be authentic and genuine to my nature, how can I possibly hope to receive and pursue all that is mine, all that was ever meant for me? So like I said, this is the most profound, most transformative program I've ever taught. So I want to give you a little taste by having talked about what we talked about here today, but I want to take you through an experience with your emotional body and with emotional resonance and the ka. Okay? So if you have some water, I would go ahead and drink that. Get yourself comfy. I love integrating my shadow. It's always rewarding. Ignoring it causes too much pain. And here's the thing. So true, Danielle. But when we uncover this part of self, you realize how much of a part of self you were missing. That you are not living in the fullness of you. That you are not working with the fullness of the entirety and the scope of you. And that is great. It is massive. And so bringing your shadow back into light, in other words, bringing it back into love, loving your shadow back into wholeness, that's all it's asking for. It wants to participate in the fullness of you. And the longer you continue to shun that and push away at that, not only are you in denial of self and committing a form of self-abandonment in the process, self-betrayal in the process, you're not living in the fullness of you. You're not living in the wholesomeness of your core truth. And there's so much to learn. There is so much energetic potential in your shadow that when you keep pushing away at it, you're pushing away at more energetic potential, because when you roll that shadow back into love, then it's energetic potential, literally creative mana, for taking you even further and more expansive ways in the direction of where you're desiring to go in your life. Because energy is just energy. And shadow harnesses energy. It pulls it from you. When you are in love with yourself, the fullness of you, when you know yourself better, you love yourself more, you are working with more creative mana at your fingertips. More potential, more possibilities, and you unveil things that you just couldn't see before, certain potentials, opportunities, synchronicities. They all start to line up in ways that you just could not imagine before. This is what happens when you are in alignment with your core truth, with yourself, with you in unity consciousness within. That's the only way you can experience it without, right? I highly recommend In Alignment and Thriving. Yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I want to take you through this very powerful process. So it's quick, and then we're going to wrap up for the day. I just want to get my notes here. So if you have water, definitely sip that water. So this is an exercise in self-mastery, okay? So sit comfortably. You can even lay down if you like to. I'm going to have some more water. Get yourself comfortable, and then if you're sitting, go ahead and put your palms face up on your lap. Roll your shoulders back, because this opens up the heart center. The heart center is the command center of unity consciousness. It is our link to evolving into higher states of consciousness. It's through the heart. A lot of times we think it's through the crown. It's the heart, okay? So go ahead. Take a deep breath in and out. In through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose. Hi, Angela. Out through the mouth. And just feel your energy, the subtle frequency of your energy is coming down a little bit more. In through the nose. And out through the mouth. And just do a quick scan of the body from the top of the head all the way down to the tips of the toes, and just notice as you kind of scan the body where you can relax the muscles of the scalp and the face and the jaw, the neck, the shoulders, the chest, the upper, mid, and lower back. Relaxing the muscle of the abdomen. You may want to burp, as I just did, pardon me. Sometimes we just need to release. Letting the muscles of the arms just relax and be easy. Feel some nice, gentle energy shooting out through the fingertips, taking with it any heavy, tight, or dense energy. Just allowing that to be removed from the body. There's no efforting here. You're just allowing the release of anything that feels unwelcome, any contrast that is making you feel at odds with yourself. Continue to bring this down through the belly, through the core of you, down through the legs, all the way out through the soles of the feet. So I want you to recall an emotional response from a particular situation in the past. Go with whatever first comes to mind, because this is always indication of the most important thing that your higher self, your God self, wants you to know and work with right now. This is how your soul speaks directly to you. Don't try to self-edit. Don't try to second guess. Go with the first impulse, the first emotional response to a particular situation from the past. It could be from today. It could be from 5 years ago. It doesn't matter. What comes to mind first? And I want you to sit with the emotion. Notice how it's easier to do that when you feel bigger and more expanded in your body. This is always the gift of being present. So when you've retrieved this emotion, let the situation drop away. Or you could imagine, just like it's drone footage, you are watching the situation, watching your interaction with another person or persons in this situation, seeing the scene around you, but it's like drone footage. You're looking down at it from above. You are not directly involved in it. You are not the subjective observer. You are not reliving. You are reviewing. In that way, you can let the situation itself not be something you have to create judgment of. You can simply let it fall away. And all that's left is the emotion in your body. And again, the emotion is how you feel or think about this feeling that you're having. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be anger, it could be rage, it could be fury. It could be something that is disappointment. Could even feel like a moment of dishonesty. I'm getting dishonesty as a word coming through here. Out of integrity is another word I'm hearing, or phrase that I'm hearing. Loveless. It's another word I'm hearing. Detached. Like emotionally detached. Almost like a numbness, because that's an emotion too. It's literally saying I don't feel anything about how I was feeling. Okay? And if you don't sense the energy of the emotion, then you haven't really chosen a feeling that is strong enough to create an emotional response in your energy system, in your awareness. So choose something maybe more obvious, a little more volatile, stronger. Don't be afraid of this. Remember, you're reviewing, not reliving. Okay? And when you've retrieved this emotion and sensed it, feel its location in your body. It's somewhere in your physical body. Because again, our human vessel is our only filter or experience. It's the only thing that gives us feedback to our experience as humans. So any emotional response that you have, if it resonates in the emotional body, the emotional field, it can have a location in the body. Your body is literally giving you biofeedback, biological feedback. This feeling lives here. Where is it? Locate it. Sense it somewhere in the space around your body also. Now, sometimes when we have certain associations with feelings, they can have associations with the organs. Like if we're feeling grief, we'll often associate that with feeling behind our back. It's behind our heart space and behind our lungs. So if it's somewhere you're experiencing grief in the body, you may feel it in the heart, in the chest cavity, in the lungs itself, and you might feel it just behind your being. So just locate it. You're not judging it, you're just locating it. You are in a complete objective observer mode. Meaning you're not taking any of this on. You're not reliving any trauma. If you're having trouble with this, just say God, self, God, self, God, self. Put me in objective observer mode. So just sense this as it moves or pulses through your physical body. And be aware that whatever you're sensing here, whatever motion this is and however strong it is, that it has created a pattern, a feeling sensation that is corded or tethered to other emotional resonances, other emotional states, other feeling natures within you. What are those other feelings? Just, again, you're cataloging them because you're witnessing them. I want you to feel a flood of compassion towards yourself right now as you're witnessing this, taking inventory of this. This will help you to stay in objective observer mode. So you might feel these other energies that are corded to this original sensation or feeling, corded or tethered. Some of you, I'm seeing a chain, like a blockchain, like a like the daisy chains we used to make as a child, okay? Because a lot of this stuff has come to us from very early on in life, something stemming from an original cause event, I call it. We go into this in much more detail in the In Alignment program. But when we can get to the root of this, we tend to break that daisy chain. It's like a blockchain or an interlinking network of emotional states stemming from this original cause or core event where we decide to fragment from the wholeness of ourselves. usually at the same time of our ego's inception. So I want you to send a flood of compassionate energy to where you're feeling this and how it's corded out to other emotions. Let it flood all the way into your nervous system. Imagine the branching of the nerves in the body being flooded in this compassionate witness energy. It's literally your soul saying, I see you, traumatized human. I see you, fragmented human. You are always whole. You just haven't felt whole. And it's like giving yourself this beautiful bath in your nervous system of compassion, of love, of being able to witness from the highest aspect of you, where you've decided to fragment from yourself, where you decided to play a game of being at odds with yourself. You can flood yourself and your nervous system with forgiveness. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. The Ho'oponopono prayer, forgiveness meditation. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And just notice how this feeling, this emotional state might have had a pulse, a vibration that now feels different. Because you've brought it into the light of love. Notice how good and expanded this part of the body feels now. And if it doesn't feel expanded, flood it with more light. Flood it with more compassion. Flood it with more forgiveness. And the forgiveness piece, this is not saying that who you were is lesser than. The forgiveness piece is more of when you made this decision to go against yourself, you were doing it from the best amount of information you had at the time. You were doing it with what limited knowledge you had available to you. It doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make the situation wrong. You don't need to assign that value or that judgment to it. If you accept what is, that means you say, I did the best I could with the information and the knowledge that was available to me at the time. And that's good enough. I am good enough. And now feel into that part of the body. Now feel how that ripples out to somewhere outside of the body where you sensed it before. Notice how the pulsing that might have felt like you when you bruise yourself and you can feel your heart beating in that area, calling attention to it, like I'm wounded, I'm wounded. The body does the same thing when we hold emotional resonance that's out of integrity with our highest and best way of being. How do you feel now? You might feel this intensity coming down a little bit. I want you to take this energy that you feel is surrounding the space, either in the body, around the organ, around the tissue, and outside of the body, expand it out. So let this energy have a color, a certain feeling. Let it fill up the entirety of your physical vessel so that all parts of you are touched by this. Let it expand out into the etheric field, into the Ka, your spiritual twin of your physical body. Let it expand out into the emotional body. You can see these as egg-shaped fields of light encompassing the other fields within it and your physical body at the center. And then past the emotional body is the mental body, and you can imagine this as big as expanding out past the planet as like a halo of an energetic field that's around the planet. It's a good way to think of the mental body. It's that big. Because it holds the collective hive mind of mass consciousness too. So when you're doing an exercise like this, you're not just healing yourself, you're healing the mental body of the human family on planet Earth. You're welcome. Let that expand out even further to the astral body. Really make it big so that you feel wholesome. It's never that you're not whole. It's never that you're not wholesome. It's just that we don't feel that. We don't hold emotional resonance with that. But the more you can hold emotional resonance with your wholeness, the more you hold resonance with unity consciousness, the more you hold resonance with New Earth and all that that is destined to be. You can have this feel like just this beautiful, warm, fuzzy, comforting blanket that you're snuggled inside and you're safe and you are comfortable, expanded in your wholeness. And put your hands on your heart and really allow yourself to feel this for just another moment before we pull the energy back and ground it. What if you felt like this every day? And even when life, in its challenges, in its series of initiations, is pulling you out of this feeling, you always have the ability, the control, the emotional mastery to pull yourself back into this resonance. That's always and ever available to you. You have that power, you have that ability, you have that capability, you have that adaptability. And I want you to pull all of this yummy wholesomeness in its expansion. I want you to imagine pulling it back into your heart center. Just collapsing it there into a pinpoint of energy, a pinpoint of light. And imagine like a shooting star taking it down through the body, through all the layers of the earth, and right down into the iron crystalline core of Mother Earth. And connecting with all the knowledge and abundance and wisdom that she holds for you, supporting you as a human here on planet Earth. And now saying, I am grounded, I am grounded, I am grounded. And just notice how good that feels. How do you feel right now? Make sure you ground that. Feel your feet planted on the floor. Feel your connection with Mother Earth. Is everyone back? How do you feel? How do you feel? You're going to want to take a sip of water. Relaxed, right? Brought the nervous system just way down. When we're spun out in our emotions, we don't often realize how much we are sending our nervous system into a tizzy, right? Our poor, overworked autonomic nervous system is just all over the place. So you have the opportunity to always get that back in check, right? And when you do that, you're going to get a different kind of feedback on your experience, right? But it's you that has to take control, right? So I suggest that you go through this process with various emotions. A lot of different things that you're feeling, especially the ones that feel more volatile, feel more intense in your energy field. And we have to be honest with the fact that a lot of us feel very intense, very volatile, very divisive emotions that are, yes, not only dividing us from the rest of the human family, but that can only ever be felt if we're feeling an inner division first. So take that back. Take that back for yourself. And the more often we do this, the more adept we are at tapping into our emotional resonance, meaning, what are we feeling and thinking about what we're feeling, about the sensory feedback that we're having, right? Are we placing value on that? Are we judging it? Are we continuing to not accept it? Because whenever we continue to not accept, we judge. And whatever we continue to judge, we are creating a reality, an inner resonance, an inner emotional resonance where we are at odds with ourselves. This is not unity consciousness. When you are at odds with yourself, you're experiencing contrast within your own inner reality. That's choosing against yourself. Get in the practice of choosing with yourself. How do you do that? What do you value? Have you taken an inventory of what it is that gives you meaning? Allows you to feel that you have a purpose, not that you are doing a purpose, because a purpose isn't a vocation. It's not what you do. Your purpose is who you be, meaning the emotional resonance that you carry is your purpose. Your soul expressing itself through a human blip of an experience is your purpose right now. What you're doing is secondary. Who you are being is primary. Okay? What do you value? What are your boundaries? What do you prize? What gives you joy? What do you love? What are you available for? What are you not available for? What are you opting out of? This is taking inventory of the core truth of you. And if you're choosing a life that is in alignment with that, in every waking moment in what I call, or what you might call, the minutiae of your everyday experience, we are in a series of making micro commitments to that core truth of us. Whether you're conscious or unconscious of it is another conversation. But every single moment, presented with every choice, every decision, it's an opportunity to make a micro commitment to the core truth of you, who you are, what you value, what gives you meaning, and who you are becoming in light of that. Or you're not. This is the In Alignment and Thriving Core program, a part of it. This work goes very, very deep. And so we're starting again on March 10th. If you wanted to get in on this program, the early bird pricing ends on the 28th of this month. If you join now, it's $300 off. This is one of the best investments that you will make in personal transformation. I can say that in all honesty and in integrity and in authenticity, and be genuine in making that statement, as grandiose as it may sound, because this tackles the most important thing in your life, and that's the relationship you are having with yourself. It is the foundation for which you interrelate and have a relationship with everything that you perceive as outside of you. There is no more important thing in your life than the relationship that you are having with yourself. I felt like gold filled all my broken and empty pieces of me, like the Japanese technique of kintsugi. That's awesome. How cool is that? So I want to thank you for being here with me today on this very auspicious day of 2/22/2022. I feel very privileged and honored to have this time with you on this very special day. If you haven't done so already, take some time in your stillness. Even if it's 10 minutes today, devote yourself to that, because the energies on this planet, the light codes hitting are so expansive, so incredibly profound, that we can really only download that and be with it as if we are in the stillness with it. So I invite you to do that. Thanks everyone for being here. This has been such a joy to share this time with you. Thank you. Thank you, Shay. Thanks, Pamela. Lots of love and light to you all. Many blessings. Love and peace.